Patrick Asuma is talking about that Vinton Sula doesn't want to receive the trophy himself, but he gets it.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out. Yeah.
Welcome, Athletes Forum Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in again. Coming back and keep subscribing, keep talking, keep chopping it up with your boy. So appreciate everyone tuning in. We had a great end to the European League of Football season with a great game, despite what the score was. It was a matchup between two great teams, great coaches, great players, a crazy atmosphere. And I'm excited to talk and react and get you guys' thoughts. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring on a special guest, a guy that is a very good friend of the show, a guy that's been on here before, a guy that a lot of you guys, I'm sure, probably miss. So let's bring him in right here. Coach Danny Mitchell, former offensive coordinator for the Vienna Vikings. What is going on?
Well, man, I appreciate you having me on, brother. I'm so excited. You just said it, dude. That championship game. Yeah, before we talk about the game itself, what an event for European football. I think for all of us that have been a part of it, regardless if you were in the ELF or not, and you played so many years out there in Switzerland, and that was a big starting point for me. So to watch that, if you aren't romantic about football and you watch that game, it would make you really understand why football is so special. To see, I mean, I'll be honest, it brought me to tears watching Vienna run out of that tunnel and there's 40,000+ people screaming. That's such a testament to what the game has become. So, man, I was so proud as a former European, and always be a European coach and player, all that. So, man, what a great thing for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I'll go back to this. When I first played in Switzerland, I would come back. People always ask me how it is, and I would tell them, listen, it's one thing for me to sit here and tell you about it, but until you go over there, you'll truly never understand. And even when you kind of remove yourself from it a little bit, you still kind of follow, pay attention. And, the atmosphere alone, all right? First of all, great game, 51-20. The Rhine Fire, are the two-time ELF champion. But I think one of the biggest things to point out here is that, we got a crowd of 41,000 for a European League of Football game that's only a league that's only 4 years old. So, and to see the trajectory of what the league wants to become, I know there's obviously a lot of skepticism and a lot of talks behind doors, stuff like that. But the product that they're seemingly putting out, at least, from marketing, from, people still wanting to attend this game, it's growing every year. I think the league's going to have an opportunity to be successful, and I'm excited to see, obviously, where it goes from here.
You just hit it, man. I think that's one of the most important parts about it, regardless of everything you just said of outside noise about the league, what's the league going to do, all that. You can't deny that number on the screen right there. Yeah. And that, to me, is the best part about the league, is it's exposing what European football really is. And I think it's the culture. It's everything. I loved the videos that the ELF was showing pre-game of the party, during the game, when they're singing Sweet Caroline. I think there's so much great things. And those are things we got to experience, but it was never exposed to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
And that's what we're getting to see. So, man,
absolutely.
I love what it's doing.
No, absolutely. And the league's doing a good job of their marketing in that sense. All right, let's chat about the game. It was I didn't think it would turn out like this. I figured the game would be high scoring, which it was. But I didn't think it would play out the way it did. I thought, I had Vienna winning. I thought it would be like a 38, 34, 27 type of game. My first question, I do want to get your thoughts, since you are a former Viking. What are your thoughts on the Rhine Fire winning their second ELF championship, where this organization has gone from the first time they've entered the league to now, and what it says about, where the European League of Football is going, and if we could possibly see more teams like the Fire? What does it say for the league, and what are your thoughts on them winning their second ELF championship?
Well, you said it, Jamal. That nothing but incredible adjectives can be used about the Rhein Fire. And I don't think that's just the coaching and just the players. That's everyone that's behind that organization, the behind the scenes people, the fan support they have, what they're doing to market what makes the Rhein Fire the Rhein Fire. I think that all came to culmination these last 2 years, as you saw it. And you kind of knew it when Coach Tom Sewell obviously leading that ship, but he'd probably be one of the first ones to tell you, if you had a chance to talk with him, I got to meet him in 2022 at the championship. Yeah. The man is all about making football great in all of Europe. And that's what I think that the stamp of those two championship teams yesterday were the pinnacle of that. I think that's what the Vienna Vikings stand for too. And so, like you just said, I think what Rhein has done, not only as an organization, but football in general for all of Europe, is a pinnacle point that I think gives a ton of hope to every, and you said it, that can other organizations do it? Yes, because they did it. They were 7-5 the year they first came into the league, when the year we came into the league, and to see what they've done the last 2 years, and it'd be hard to culminate in one. And that's why I said there's so many great adjectives to describe them. It's not just one thing, because it's not just one person. It's not just one aspect of what they do. Now, man, their coaches did a phenomenal job yesterday. Their players did a phenomenal job. But I would say that all goes back into who's behind the scenes as well, who's making that all happen. And, man, I'm excited to talk about their coaching, because I think they did something phenomenal yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm excited you went that route, because I think I think both coaches did a really good job. Coach Kent, Coach Weidinger had great game plans. Speaking from Weidinger's perspective, I think he did a really good job at, when attacking the deep zones of Vienna, for example, they would have like a 2 wide receiver split, and it'd be like a deep go, but like a deep out or deep corner concept, something right, which will put Xavier Edwards in the bind, because now you're attacking the weak spots in the cover 3. I thought he did a good job at attacking those deep zones, but also a lot of misdirection. Vienna clearly had an objective. They want to come in and stop the run. Traditionally, they're like 3-3 stack, 3-2-6 type of defense. They went with a 4-3. I think it was leading into the fourth quarter. They only had about 99 rushing yards, I think, going into the fourth quarter. But again, going back to Weidinger, I think he did a good job at keeping their defense off balance or off their game a little bit with what he was calling. Am I right, or what did you see from your side?
Yeah, you are spot on. I thought it was an offensive clinic that he put on yesterday, and I believe that was really both teams, and that's why I really think that was such a unique game. And we were talking pre-show. Vienna took the opening drive right away and scored. And so you see, there, and then the very next drive, Rhein goes down and scores, and then Vienna is driving again, and Kari fumbles down the sideline about 20 yards down the field. So you see both sides, like you saw, man, this is going to be a juggernaut of offense. Yeah. Well, let's go back to Coach Weidinger. I mean, I was unfortunate enough to have to play him 3 times when he was the head coach of Barcelona, and and he'll be the first one to say it too. He won. Every time we played, he won 3 of those quarters. We were just fortunate to win in the fourth quarter each time we played. In the playoff game, we finally came to culmination. But, down at Barcelona, we're down 2 scores, had to make a comeback. That's him running that team. Then he came to our place. We're down at halftime. We're down going into the fourth. We go 97 yards to go win the game. So, he is a phenomenal leader. And I got to meet him because he had coached a couple of the players that we had with Vienna, with Toby Letman and Michael Bruller when he was with Potsdam. And you can see just the impact he's had on his players. And that, I think that's what was really cool about yesterday, is all that came to culmination. And you talked about all the great things he did yesterday, just misdirection wise. But I think one of the big things that really stood out to me, and he was stubborn with the run. As much as the numbers don't show it, why I say he was stubborn with the run is he allowed, even though, Glenn wasn't getting going early on, right? Glenn was, and that was the objective. Heck, I played against Glenn in the championship 2 years ago. You got to stop him. What he did is he didn't panic. He stayed with, hey, we're going to stay stubborn with this. And how he used misdirection, like you used the words, the action that you brought up earlier, right? That they throw the the out route on the sideline,
Yeah.
like a flood concept where Xavier's zoning off. Well, that was off of play action. And, you know, the other one, you know, the way he ran the ball, he ran what I call a counter around that I thought was one of the best plays. Yes. Yeah. In the whole game. But how he presented it was to me, I mean, I wrote it down for our own game plan. So hopefully Navy doesn't watch this, but you know, they were in a bunch set to the boundary, right? So they're on both hashes. So on a bunch set to the boundary. So what that does to the defense is say, hey, we're going to declare that side the strength. So where all those receivers are, we're going to declare that side the strength.
Or making the boundary.
They motioned the Y to the field. Then they motioned Glenn to the backfield and then flew him to the field. So it looked like, oh, they're going to get into an empty set. And they brought Glenn right back. So a rewind type motion. So now it looks like, oh, great. They're running counter back to the boundary. And then they flip the ball on that reverse. To me, that is phenomenal design, manipulating the defense in a simple way, but presenting it in a way that's, all they're trying to do, hey, we're trying to run the ball to the field. We're going to present that we're running the ball to Glenn to the boundary. You know, you're going to let you make you set your strength. They outnumbered Vienna right away just by presentation. And I saw him do that over and over and over again. And, you know, again, it started from, in my belief, this is just obviously opinion from watching it. I thought he was so phenomenal with staying stubborn with the run. And that really helped Jadrian go out and play the way Jadrian played. And I think that cleaned the pocket up because now it forces the D-line and the linebackers, the strength of Vienna's defense. It forces them to play at the line of scrimmage. So now you can't pin your ears back and go after Jadrian because he's staying stubborn trying to hand the ball off. So I can talk about him all day.
And even when he was at Barcelona, that's something that maybe it was personnel, but that's something that wasn't really his DNA or what we saw. He was more of a guy that wanted to kill you through the air. And now he has the best back in Europe, and he's shown that, like, listen, if you want me to run the ball, I can run the ball. And he's giving those concepts too. And like you said, Vienna offensively, I thought they had a great game plan too. I thought they wanted to be aggressive. Unfortunately, penalties early and fumbles set them back, and they started playing behind the 8 ball a little bit. And I think defensively for the Fire, they saw, all right, Ben Holmes has the mobility to use his legs. And as you saw in that first opening drive, they dropped Marloshawn down and started spying a little bit, kept Ben from breaking out into those deep runs and really forcing him to play from the pocket a little bit. I think, you know, it was a phenomenal game. And obviously those who love ball, from the perspective we're talking about, we can sit here and talk about it all day. As a former Viking, though, obviously, there's probably an emotional attachment to it. But, like, what were your thoughts watching, you know, the game? And maybe when it started to get away, was there opportunity that, you know, they could have came back, or were there opportunities presented? Or, you know, what were your thoughts when watching as a former Viking?
Yeah, obviously, you know, not only as a former Viking, but now sitting there as a fan, it hurt. Obviously, it hurts, you know, and it hurts for me just watching it because you're emotionally attached to the players, not the logo. You know, watching, you know, seeing Beer Bomber and Bua on the sideline and Kimi Lanaima and Lewis Hort. I mean, that 99% of that team was the group I got to be a part of. So, but here's what I think that gets overlooked in a lot of these championship games. But it was a huge moment. What makes, I think, both those teams special. So there's a clip when Vienna scores. It's 23-6 at the point. Then Vienna scores. They throw a fade to Reese Horn to make it 23-13. And one of the best moments of that, this is, I think, a culmination of the culture that Vienna has. And this is why it hurt watching them lose, but this is what makes them special. They score the touchdown, and it pans to the sideline, and Reese Horn is sitting there next to Kimi Lanaima, and I believe Ben Holmes is sitting with them too. And you hear them. You hear that they pick up the audio, and they're saying, hey, let's go. Just go again and again and again and again. So the mindset, the championship mindset that they have, that's what they are. Yeah. So it's hard because, you know, that's what you try to preach to every program, but that's what winners do. And then it panned when I love watching the Fire when the same thing when they respond. They go to their sideline. To me, it fires me up when I hear guys, hey, they can't hang with us. Keep going. We can't hang with us. Keep going. That's what was special about both those teams. And I think that's overlooked at times when the score gets so far away, because I don't believe that score is a reflection of what actually was portrayed yesterday. But man, I think the hardest part was I think what ended up happening, and again, this is now fan talk, not just speaking as a coach, but this from the coach's perspective. When Vienna got out of it, when it became 30-13, and they had to start drop back passing, and like you said, they had to start, the score dictated it to take a little more shots. One of the hardest things to do, and I'd say it because it's a cliche thing to say as a coach, but one of the hardest things to do when you have such a high mountain to climb or such a deficit to make up for. I remember doing this when we were at Barcelona. The thought process all of a sudden has to become, hey, let's minimize what can we be successful at right now. Can I chunk 2 yards? Can I chunk 5 yards? And I get you're playing against the clock, and I get you're playing against the juggernaut on the other side. Believe me, that's the emotion that's hard to fight against. But the way I think you get back in those games, and you saw Coach Max trying to do that, right? I'm not criticizing anything I thought they had a great plan. I thought they were doing everything they could. But when that happens, when you become having to be, hey, we're going to drop back pass. Well, Ryan Fire's got a really good pass rush. That secondary is the best in the league, if not, them and Vienna, those are the top two. So, you're now starting to expose the strengths of the defense when they're obviously, that's why I brought up Coach Weidinger. What he's really doing is trying to stay, when he was calling the game, he's trying to stay on, hey, I'm going to keep my strengths. And even though they weren't running the ball well, that's been their strength all year. And I'm going to stay leaning on that and use the counters off of it. And that's what I think ended up happening is you made Vienna at the end of the game, because of the score and the deficit, become one-sided and one-dimensional. And that's when these games start to get far apart. So, man, there's so many things you can go back into those type of games when you lose. But the thing that stuck out to me is you saw two championship cultures clash. And that's why I brought up those scenes.
Yeah. It was a great overall organization, coaches, players, everything. It was definitely a good game. I think before we move on to the next thing I kind of want to talk to you about, some things that stood out was that Vienna really struggled to get to Jadrian. They couldn't really develop a pass rush. They may have got some like once or twice, but when you're playing a quarterback that could dice you up from the pocket, and when he's feeling it, he'll throw anything. As you can see that touchdown, Brian Winter, he'll throw anything. He'll give you a chance to pick it up. But he was feeling it. Obviously, he was MVP, of the game. So I think that's one thing that stood out. Another thing stood out was, again, you talk about a team that's composed and balanced and not rushing things. The Ryan Fire won the time possession 39 minutes to 15 minutes. That is huge because you're stealing possessions from the other team at that point when it's that big of a deficit. And again, you gotta win on third down. You gotta get off the field. You gotta win on first down to put them behind. And those are some things that unfortunately Vienna wasn't able to do. But it just states there's a lot of different ways you could win. You can win a ball game. One of the things I want to talk about is this guy on our screen right now, Jadrian Clark. This guy came into the league before the European League football was even started with the stain that a lot of people talk about is can't win the big game. And he played for a lot of great organizations. He's an OG in Europe, not just the ELF, in all of Europe. And he's been in the league for 4 years since the league has started. He's been to 3 ELF championships, and he is 2-1. And he has a second ELF championship MVP. What does Jadrian mean to the league as this is going to continue to grow? And he even said it himself. I quote him, "We're not done yet." So it's almost kind of scary, like where this team could potentially, how much more he could develop and grow and be able to gain. But what does Jadrian mean to the European League football, a league that is heading into its 5th year?
Man, I think what he is exactly what you want in a football player, right? It's what you were, bro. I mean, we know that. He's a warrior. If you were to put one adjective about him, he's a warrior. Him and I have had opportunities to just have conversation. We tried to meet up at the AFCA, the coaches convention in Nashville, because honestly, I wanted to meet him just as a fan. I know he was a former Viking as well in 2020.
Yeah, former Viking. So he's played for a lot. He's played for the Unicorns. He's played for the Vikings. He's played, obviously, Hamburg Fire. He's played for a lot of great organizations.
You said it about him. And, dude, what he means is exactly what the game stands for. Like I know I'm repeating myself about saying he's a warrior, and you saw that. And I think one of the the play on the field showed that, obviously. But again, here's another moment that really stood out to me yesterday about Jadrian. So that first opening drive, right? Vienna's up 6-0 because they missed the extra
Yeah, they
point.
missed the field goal.
Well, there's a couple weird clock stoppages and penalties going on. It's like the flow of the offense isn't going for the Fire. And you see Jadrian, in a little bit of a frustrated conversation with the officials, but then go right back to his team and calming him down. I'm like, dude, this guy's got the it. Everyone talks about the it. He has that. He was so composed. You used that word before. He's so composed in those big moments. And that's why he's been there, of the 4 championships, he's been in 3 of them. And arguably he might've been in one, that second year, if he doesn't get to the Rhein Fire late, So, you can't not say he's one of the best players to ever come out. And again, I know he'll probably say this exact same thing. I've only had a couple conversations, but the quarterback position's about everyone else. It's not about just, what he can do. And like you said it, well, guys weren't touching him. Well, his offense, he's the one that's getting that offensive line going. He knows that's getting, he's the one that has to put the ball into those receivers' hands that end up getting open for him, and again, they mentioned it even in the broadcast. Well, Jadrian only threw 20 something touchdowns. Yeah, only, because last year he threw 50. Well, that's another testament to him playing the position, to him being the leader of that team. And the thing that really, again, I'm the third time I'm going to say it just for emphasis, he's a warrior. And, and I think that's exactly what you saw yesterday from both quarterbacks. You saw Ben Holmes, a warrior all year. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out for them, but that's what it takes. Man, you played with one of the best warriors I know, with Josh. The toughest dudes ever. That's what that position's about. And so, man, I'm so happy for Jadrian and what he's doing. And, man, he's right. That's what a warrior responds. It's like, that's what Brady said, I'll go win another one. It's ready for the next one. So
it's interesting to know that that he still has that mentality that he's nowhere close to wanting to be done. So that's exciting though. That's exciting, obviously, for the league. And, there are a lot of great quarterbacks in the ELF. Just thinking about where we've come from, year one to now, and then one of those middle years where we've had a million quarterbacks come in, whether it was due to injury or for other reasons. The quarterback competitiveness in the league has grown, and we've seen more teams stay loyal to their quarterbacks, and we've seen teams get quarterbacks that have that European experience, and we've seen how it's played out. What are your thoughts on? Before we move on, I didn't have this right now, but it just came to my head because this was a fan favorite of a lot of people in the league. I interviewed the guy before he went to the Vikings. A lot of people like, obviously, his story, where he comes from, and obviously it played out to who he is and where he's got the team to where they were yesterday. But what are your thoughts on Ben Holmes?
Man, what I will be honest, I think he's the best player in the league as a quarterback. If I'm just speaking again,
everyone thinks he's the most prolific passer in the league. But again, if you get to know him, he's a great person. Again, I advise everybody, I'm not here to spread anybody's business, but his story is out there. Go look it up. Resiliency, great guy. I've had the opportunity to talk to him. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on him.
You're right. And I'm only speaking as a fan. I've never actually had any real conversations with Ben, but just watching him. And again, I say that the best player, I'm talking about everything he was able to accomplish as a player. I'm speaking just him, what he does on a field. And that's what, again, it's hard to, it's like when you're comparing the GOATs, right? Like what ends up happening, right? Like, it's like, I don't know how to compare to LeBron and Michael, but it's the same thing. Like, Jadrian's a great player. The other quarterback that we're missing in this conversation, Zach Edwards, who's the MVP. Yeah. I mean, the guy is a phenomenal player, but why I bring up Ben is obviously all the tools were there. The speed that he plays with, the way he's a prolific passer. You could see the poise in the pocket, the way he you can sense the leadership, right? You can sense the it factor he has. And that was shown all throughout the season. I would even say yesterday, because I think it shines more when you're starting to get defeated, and the way he was responding when he'd get sacked. There was the way he'd go. Well, again, I point out these moments to me are what are special about these dudes, right? Those were elites going yesterday, the best of the best, in my opinion. He gets sacked on one. It was a third down. He gets sacked, and Vienna ends up having to punt. He gets sacked, and he goes over and just taps Milos on the butt. Hey, and you can tell he's telling him, "Hey, let's go. We're okay." Right? He ain't getting on his guys on it. His mentality was that, again, let's go do it. We can go fight. Right? That, I think, that stands out. So, man, what it was such a joy to watch him play, and that's one of those games yesterday. You have two guys clash, and unfortunately, one of them has to lose.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah, I hear that, and again, I'm excited to see what happens. Obviously, ELF, European offseason in general gets crazy because you're really rebuilding from scratch, or you're trying to maintain. So it'll be interesting. But there we have it. European League of Football wraps up year 4. The Rhine Fire are the first, only, and ever back-to-back and 2-time ELF championship as they take home the victory 51-20 as we head into year number 5. But before we head into year number 5 and before we wrap this up, I can't let Coach Mitchell go without asking him about some breaking news that happened this past weekend. We are getting a team up north in Copenhagen. Part Copenhagen, part Malmo. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the new franchise, the Nordic Storm.
Well, I have a real close, Scandinavia is close to my heart. I mean, being a Karlstad Crusader, before being a Vienna Viking. So, I think it's so great for the league to have more representation. I'm excited that Denmark's going to be represented here. But, obviously getting to pull from Malmo too, the south of Sweden, and, having some great players down there. So, again, I think it's just a great thing to expose the league, to give to put another platform of football in Europe. Now, I get what it's, I know there's going to be pushback from the leagues within those countries, right? I know there's going to be a pushback from that. And, I would just say, let's see how this thing plays out. Let's see, I think it's always great when more and more people are getting the exposure of this game, because ultimately let's really talk about what really makes European football special is everyone chooses to do it. Yeah. It's not like, yes, this is the pro leagues. Point, I get it. But there is nothing like getting to choose to do something. So that brings a different joy to it. And I know that a lot of times that's overlooked, because I say it, I'm coaching college football here, and you know what college football has become, right? It's pro football. And I mean, you can look up what NIL deals are. You can look up what our conference NIL deals are. They're crazy in the Americans. I'm not going to dive into that. But my point is that sometimes is getting pulled out of the game, getting to choose to do it. And that's why I love European football so much, is because 100% of those players out there, the Americans that are paid, that is professional football for them. And you get a great life out there. And the guys, the European imports, and the guys that are the homegrowns, they're all paid to do it, but they choose to do it. Absolutely. They're saying, hey, and that's why I think what makes Jadrian special. He's saying, hey, I'm going to go do this again because I want to do this again. And that's overlooked. And I will say that being firsthand in this, and that's sometimes getting lost at the what you see on cameras. And that's the heart of the game. So I'm hoping that's exactly what people are going to get to see about this new organization, as they do the same thing that the great organizations do. They're choosing to play football.
Yep. And it seems like they have realistic expectations. Reading the statement, I advise everybody to go check them out. So shout out to the Nordic Storm. Excited to see how that pans out. Excited to see where they go in the quarterback. And that's going to be a topic for another day. But, hey, Coach Mitchell, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate you doing this again, man.
I appreciate you, brother. This has been a blast every time. And, man, it's so great to see your face, man. I can't wait till we run into each other again.
Most definitely. We'll talk soon, all right?